Hello, everyone. This is Fair Housing Advocates, bringing you another Fair Housing 101 series webinar, a brief one. What is an assistance animal, an emotional support animal, or a service animal? And this is under the Fair Housing Act, so we're dealing with housing issues, not public accommodations issues. So what are these things? Does it matter? Is there a difference? So while we're discussing assistance animals, it's probably because we're talking about maybe an individual who's disabled. So who is disabled under the Fair Housing Act? So disability is defined as, under the Act, as a person who has a physical or mental impairment which substantially limits one or more major life activities, a record of such an impairment, or being regarded as having such an impairment. Now, I've given you a list of major life activities. So this is not a complete list, but for example, caring for oneself, which is, let's say, showering, using the toilet, performing manual tasks, walking, seeing, hearing, things like sleeping, which aren't on this list here. But so there are major life activities. So as long as one of your major life activities is substantially limited, you are disabled. You do not need to have a named disability. You can, but if you cannot sleep at all, it is substantially limited, you may be disabled according to the Fair Housing Act. Keep that in mind. Or if you have a physical or mental impairment. Again, this is not a complete list either, so you're not limited to the following diseases and conditions that it may be: orthopedic, visual, speech and hearing impairment, cerebral palsy, autism, epilepsy, cancer, HIV, mental retardation, emotional illness, and drug addiction, other than an illegal use of a controlled substance and alcoholism. So if you have a major life activity that's substantially limited, you can be disabled. Or you maybe have a physical or mental impairment that's pretty well known and is named, and you would be disabled as well. So while we're talking about disability, if someone requires a service dog, an emotional support animal, or an assistance animal, since we're using all of these terms, let's define them. What is an assistance animal? An assistance animal is not a pet. It is an animal that works, provides assistance, performs tasks for the benefit of a person with a disability, or provides emotional support that alleviates one or more identified symptoms or effects of a person's disability. Assistance animals perform many disability-related functions, including not limited to guiding individuals who are blind, alerting individuals who are deaf, providing protection or rescue assistance, pulling a wheelchair, fetching items, alerting persons to impending seizures, or providing emotional support to persons with disabilities who have a disability-related need for such support. So as you can see, or hear, an assistance animal is a service animal or an emotional support animal. It is both, because as you can see, the definition provides emotional support or performs tasks for the benefit of a person with a disability, pulling a wheelchair, guiding people, right? So an assistance animal is either service animal or emotional support animal. So what you need to know moving forward is, as we talk about the Fair Housing Act and disability discrimination, we use the term assistance animal. It includes both, which means that emotional support animals and service dogs are treated the same under the Fair Housing Act. As long as you have a need for the animal, now, well, we're going to get into the needs, but they are treated the same. There is no difference between the emotional support animal and the service animal when it comes to fair housing. Not one is more important than the other. So an animal qualifies as a reasonable accommodation if an individual with a disability or individual has a disability as defined in the Fair Housing Act or Section 504. We just went over that. So substantially, a major life activity is substantially limited. And let's say number two, the animal is necessary to assist you with the disability, and the person who requests the accommodation demonstrates that there is an absolute connection between the disability, let's say I can't sleep, and the assistance the animal provides. Maybe because I'm with the animal, the emotional support it provides permits me to sleep, or I can't walk, The dog helps me walk. I can't see. The dog does something to help me, well, not see, but to guide me, right? So the animal has to ameliorate or kind of solve the issue. I think solve might be strong, but address the issue and accommodate you, help you with your disability. Then it's an assistance animal. Again, the word assistance animal, not emotional support animal, not service animal. So are they trained? Do they have to be trained? So for the purposes of a reasonable accommodation request, neither the Fair Housing Act nor Section 504 requires an assistance animal, which is either service animal or emotional support animal, to be individually trained or certified. For those who are being told that they need to have service dog certification, that is incorrect. Nor they need to be trained for those people who are disabled or are being told by the housing providers, your dog needs to have proof of training. That is also incorrect. Hopefully we're learning something. So emotional support animals, as we all know, have no training. So neither emotional support animals nor any assistance animal, which includes service animals, be required to have training or any kind of certified or certification. So as long as the animal is necessary to assist, support, or provide service to a person with a disability and address their disability, they're really an assistance animal. Well, how about public housing and that type of housing governed by ADA rules? Aren't there properties that are ADA governed? Well, that's true. There are. But that doesn't mean that they can only apply the ADA definition of a service animal. So the definition of a service animal contained in ADA regulations does not limit housing providers' obligations, right? They have to. Their obligations to grant reasonable accommodation requests for assistance animals in housing under either the Fair Housing Act or Section 504. So if your animal fits under the definition of assistance animal, then the Fair Housing Act must be applied, which, as you probably figured out by now, if it's either an emotional support animal or a service animal, it is an assistance animal. So the Fair Housing Act applies everywhere. There are some small exceptions we're not going to get into today because this is a Fair Housing 101 series webinar. But everyone must apply the Fair Housing Act. I've heard some housing providers, landlords, and property owners attempt to defend their actions by saying, well, this is an ADA property and your animal does not fit the definition of a service animal. Well, HUD decided to combat that, and they said the following, that public entities or public accommodations that operate housing facilities may not use the ADA definition of service animal as a justification for reducing their Fair Housing Act obligations. So let's evaluate a reasonable accommodation request, because that's why most people who are watching this they have an assistance animal of some sort. They're always asking for accommodation requests, where they're looking to live in a new unit at an apartment complex or a homeowners association or a mobile home park. So two considerations for the housing provider. Does a person seeking to use and live with the animal have a disability? We already described what a disability is. Substantially limited major life activity, right? And does the person making the request have a disability-related need for the animal? In other words, does the animal work, provide assistance, perform tasks or services for the benefit of a person with a disability, or does it provide emotional support that alleviates one or more of the identified symptoms or effects of a person's existing disability? If the answer is yes and yes, then the Fair Housing Act requires the housing provider to provide an exception to any of their rules, accommodations to the rules. So let me give you an example. If you are disabled and you suffer from a severe form of, let's say, post-traumatic stress disorder due to combat, you cannot sleep. It's substantially limited. Sleeping is very, very difficult, if not impossible. And you have an assistance animal, and let's say it's an emotional support animal because the bond you have with it is so great that it substantially reduces your anxiety so you can sleep. So you went from can't sleep to can sleep. If you have problems walking, and the dog helps you walk. If you have problems seeing, and the dog guides you so that, it guides you for the purposes of seeing, right? So if the animal provides some sort of assistance that has a strong connection with your disability, can't sleep, and then helps you sleep, can't walk, can't help you walk. That's the connection that HUD is looking for, and the housing provider would have to provide the accommodation to you. So hopefully none of this sounded familiar, and hopefully we provided some education here. But please let us know if you or a family member or a friend are a victim of possible victim of discrimination. So, for example, if a city or county in which the disabled person is living prohibits their assistance animal from living with them within the city limits, that would be a violation of the Fair Housing Act. If the landlord prohibits your assistance animal from living with you, or from using the property, or from visiting others who live on the property, or if the apartment, condo association, mobile home park, or HOA, homeowners association, prohibits your assistance animal from using the common areas, or prohibits your assistance animal from living with you. So, for example, you have an emotional support animal, and they won't let you take it to the pool area, or to the fitness center, to the clubhouse, or to some barbecue function on, the common area of the mobile home park, of the apartment complex, of the condo association. That would be a violation. Is the landlord subjecting your assistance animal to pet fees, pet deposits, or monthly pet rent? Is your housing provider prohibiting your emotional support animal because it's not a service dog? Or are you being required to provide, quote, service dog certificate or proof of service dog training? Are you required to have a doctor's letter? Doctor's letter is not a requirement. They can ask you, if your disability is not readily apparent, to provide documentation that would verify your disability and your disability-related need, but wouldn't necessarily have to come from the doctor. So if any of these things sound familiar to you, there may be a violation of the Fair Housing Act, and you have the opportunity to protect yourself. And how would one protect themselves? Well, you could file a fair housing complaint directly with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. Fair Housing Advocates is a nonprofit civil rights firm dedicated to helping any victim of housing discrimination defend or establish their fair housing civil rights on the basis of protected class. We here at Fair Housing Advocates do all of this at no cost. We are a nonprofit civil rights firm. We provide counseling and advocacy. We can help write the complaint, create and gather evidence to support your fair housing complaints, file the complaint, assist you, the complainant, with any HUD interviews and communications, assist in the negotiation of a settlement for you if you're the victim. We provide testing investigations to support your complaint. We do this all at no cost. We provide education and outreach, all at no cost. If you or your organization, if you have a veterans organization, you're part of a service dog organization, and you want education, you want a webinar, just like the one I'm hosting right now, customized for your organization, let us know. We'll be glad to do that at no cost. We do seminars and workshops. We're even available for advice immediately. We have a Facebook page. You can send us a private message. You can call us. You can email us. We create multimedia presentations, customized, of course, perhaps for your organization. So any kind of fair housing training we could provide. If you have any questions about this video that you just saw, or you believe that you or someone you may know, family, friend, might be a victim of fair housing or housing discrimination, you may reach us at info@fairhousingact.org at the bottom of the screen. Or you could also visit our website, fairhousingact.org. We post a blog with interesting articles. We tell you a lot more about our organization. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach us. We'd love to help you protect or establish your fair housing rights. And tune in again for another Fair Housing 101 series webinar in the immediate near future.